As part of our COVID recovery program, we are inviting entrepreneurs from different parts of the world to come into our country and set up businesses here in New Zealand. My name is Arun Jacob, and I am a licensed New Zealand immigration advisor who lives in the beautiful city of Hamilton here in New Zealand. I have lived in New Zealand with my family since the year 2001, and I'm a proud New Zealander today. And I help a lot of other talented people from across the world to also move into New Zealand through the help of my wonderful team at AJV Global. We cater to all kinds of migrants, and today specifically I'm going to talk about those who are interested to come into New Zealand and set up a business as an entrepreneur. Then comes the first question: how much money do I need to invest to set up a business in New Zealand? And what are the other criteria which I need to meet to be able to procure an entrepreneur work visa? Well, as per our immigration law, we have a points-based system where we assess to see whether you're getting 120 points to be able to come to New Zealand and successfully establish a business as an entrepreneur, and in that process also create residence opportunities for yourself and your family. As regards the money itself is concerned, now here's the surprising news. We require something as low as 100,000 New Zealand dollars as our investment. However, as a licensed immigration advisor and also a co-entrepreneur like yourself, I understand the importance of capital, and I actually encourage people who are considering setting up a business in New Zealand to look at a minimum investment of 200,000 New Zealand dollars. In today's age and time, really 200,000 New Zealand dollars is not a lot of money, and somebody with the right idea and with that kind of capital can come into New Zealand and establish a very, very good business. The other interesting thing about the funds is that sometimes the funds that need to be invested into your business can be waived by an officer of immigration New Zealand who will assess your entrepreneur work visa. These funds can either be in your name or they can also be jointly held by your partner or your wife if you're in a relationship. The other big advantage of considering the entrepreneur work visa into New Zealand is that there is no age limit, which means unlike other migration categories like the skilled migrant category or a few other categories where there is a clear age limit, there is no age limit for the entrepreneur work visa. Although there is no age limit, if you are 60 years or above, no points will be allocated towards your age, and that is something to be considered. The other interesting aspect of the entrepreneur work visa is if you're granted an entrepreneur work visa, then your spouse would get a full-time work visa from day one. And if you have children who are of school-going age, fantastic news for you, because your kids would get domestic student status in New Zealand, which means they can then go to a school in New Zealand. And for us here in New Zealand, schooling costs little or nothing. While your spouse or your partner will get a full-time work visa, you can of course hire him or her in your own business that you're going to set up. But this will not count towards creating full-time employment, which will be one of the conditions attached to your entrepreneur work visa, because when you're creating employment in New Zealand, it has to be for local citizens and residents only. And then there comes the aspect of English. For most visa categories in New Zealand, there is always an English requirement. And as far as the entrepreneur work visa is concerned, the English required is far lower than most other categories. We need to see only an English ability which is equivalent to a score of 4 or above in the IELTS exam or an equivalent exam. And also, if your partner or your spouse cannot get that score of 4 in IELTS, there is another possibility as well. There is something called the pre-purchase of an ESOL Pack, which stands for English for Speakers of Other Languages. Well, to sum it up, really English is not going to be such a big challenge to overcome while you're pursuing your entrepreneur work visa category into New Zealand. Now, coming to the stages of the entrepreneur work visa, this is divided into two separate stages. The first 12 months of your visa is called the startup stage, during which time you will need to come into New Zealand and actually start working towards establishing the business which you talked about during your application process. During the startup stage, you can come into New Zealand with your funds, with your family, and start establishing your business. And in those 12 months, you will then be up and running as a business in New Zealand. And at the end of those 12 months, there will be an assessment done by Immigration New Zealand again to see whether you have reached those milestones which were put forward as the milestones you will achieve during your application process. After the first 12 months, which is called the startup stage, you will then be granted a further 24 months extension to your entrepreneur work visa, and this 24 months is called the balance stage. And in this balance stage, what you will do is you'll begin to grow stronger roots of the business that you have established in the startup stage. At the end of each stage, Immigration New Zealand will assess to see whether you have been achieving the milestones which were mentioned in your initial visa application. The big question will be, at what stage can I get my resident visa under this category? Well, the law says quite clearly that you need to have established and run your business for a minimum period of 2 years before an assessment can be made to see whether you have achieved all the milestones which were mentioned in your application. And if you have successfully achieved those milestones, then you could very well be on your way to applying for the resident visa and live in New Zealand permanently by yourself or with your family. New Zealand. The other interesting aspect of the entrepreneur work visa is that you do not have to start from scratch in establishing a new business in New Zealand. You could actually invest into an established New Zealand business as long as you're buying a stake of 25% or more in that business and will be actively involved in the running of that business and meet all the milestones that you said you will achieve in your application. There you have it. I have presented with you the key information about how we can utilize the entrepreneur work visa category to come into New Zealand and establish a successful business and also create a great future for yourself and your family in this country. Then comes the next question. How can AJV Global help you? Well, for a start, we are a New Zealand-based company operating out of our beautiful city called Hamilton, which is one of the largest and fastest growing cities in New Zealand at the moment, with a lot of economic activity all around us. We encourage you to consider setting up a business in Hamilton because you also get extra points for establishing a business outside Auckland. Not only that, if you are coming to New Zealand and establishing a business in Hamilton with the help of AJV Global, we have a special package which also includes a plug-and-play office for you from day one after you land in New Zealand. And of course, our ongoing immigration and business advisors always there for you. Once you think you are an entrepreneur who can come into New Zealand and set up a business, just get in touch with us. Some of our senior people will get in touch with you and we will gather some basic information, which then comes to me and I will do an assessment to see the viability of creating an entrepreneur work visa pathway for you and your family. We can even start by suggesting certain business ideas to you in New Zealand because we live here and we know what the requirements of the society and this economy are. And of course, because it's a longish process, we will be working with you at each and every stage of the application and even after you land in New Zealand. The package we have evolved for entrepreneurs is absolutely covering everything from A to Z, from the time you send us an inquiry till the time you get your resident visa in New Zealand. We are well networked here in New Zealand with the local business community, with our chambers of commerce, with leading government officials, and also professionals like lawyers and accountants. we can bring all these strengths together to help you create a really good and solid entrepreneurial work visa application. The entrepreneurial work visa is designed by Immigration New Zealand to eventually give you and your family residency or permanent residency in New Zealand. What matters is that you're able to come in on the entrepreneurial work visa, establish your business, and tick off those boxes as per your business plan. And once you achieve that, yes, you will be granted a residence for yourself and your family. The entrepreneurial work visa is granted initially for a period of 1 year, and this is called the startup stage. This startup stage is where you actually come into New Zealand and set up your business and establish it. Once you do that, and the business specialist looks at your progress and says, yes, this person has done the things he or she said will do in the business plan, then you'll be granted a work visa for a further 2 years, and that is called the balance stage. Some of the requirements for the entrepreneurial work visa is that first and foremost, you need to be experienced in your own business, or you should have worked in a senior management capacity with an organization. So that is the absolute first essential. Of course, then there is a requirement for an investment, but in certain circumstances, that investment can be waived if you are planning to introduce a product or service to New Zealand, which has got either a good export potential or a high growth, or introduces an innovative product or service to New Zealand. Besides that, of course, we are also looking at an English requirement of 4 or above in the IELTS test. And also, if you're coming with your family, there would be an English requirement for them as well at one stage in your entrepreneurial work visa journey. When the entrepreneurial work visa is granted to you, and if in the original application your family was included, you can all come in together into New Zealand. Well, the entrepreneurial work visa, as I said earlier, is broken up into the startup stage of 1 year and the balance stage of 2 years, where you need to establish and prove that you are going to meet all the milestones that you mentioned in your business plan. But there's a very interesting twist to it, where if you have invested $500,000 or more into a business in New Zealand, and you have created at least 3 full-time employment here in New Zealand for a citizen or resident, then you could potentially apply for your resident visa after 6 months of operation only. And I think this is a phenomenal clause in the immigration law. But under normal circumstances, your resident visa would be granted after the 3-year period of the entrepreneurial work visa, once an assessment is made to see that you have actually ticked off all those milestones that you said you will achieve in your application. Well, that's a really good question, because there are a lot of people who would like to come and set up businesses in New Zealand and be entrepreneurs under this particular visa category. There are various parameters that you need to tick off before you will be selected and be granted an entrepreneurial work visa, and which is where someone like myself, who is a licensed immigration advisor and also an entrepreneur who lives in New Zealand, can do a thorough assessment of your application, or your candidature rather, and take a look to see whether we can progress it to the application stage. So your first step would be to reach out to us at AJV Global. We will gather some basic information, assess it, and then also do a detailed consultation and take you through those points to check and see whether you qualify to apply for an entrepreneurial work visa. The processing time for an entrepreneurial work visa could be between 8 to 12 months time, and it will also depend largely on how well your application has been compiled and presented to Immigration New Zealand for processing, which is where a team like AJV Global can be your real asset, because we know how to do these things very professionally. We have one of the best teams in the world, which is promoting New Zealand as a destination. And on our team, we have 8 licensed immigration advisors, as well as a lot of ex-immigration officers of New Zealand. And together, we will compile and present your case in such a way that you'll have a good, fast outcome on your application. But thumb rule, be prepared to wait for between 8 to 12 months of processing. The other important thing about processing the entrepreneurial work visa, right now due to COVID, a lot of offshore branches of Immigration New Zealand are still shut down, but the entrepreneurial work visa is actually processed onshore in New Zealand, which means there will not be any delay in processing your application. Well, as regards the interview for the entrepreneurial work visa is concerned, Obviously, it will revolve around your background as a business person or a senior manager. And of course, there will be a lot of questions asked around the business plan that you have submitted, which will talk about the kind of business you're going to establish in New Zealand. And I believe the questions will be also around, are you introducing an innovative product or service into the New Zealand economy? Is it an export-oriented business? Or will you be creating significant employment in New Zealand? And of course, it's going to be more of a generic chat really to understand whether you're truly that entrepreneur who can come into New Zealand and set up a successful business and benefit New Zealand's economy and society. Trying to get an entrepreneur work visa without an investment is technically possible as per the rules of Immigration New Zealand, provided that the business plan you're putting up comes under certain sectors of industry which the government of New Zealand considers as very significant to our growth today and for the future as well. Yes, so there are certain categories like science and information technology, and if you present a good business plan under some of these areas, there is a possibility that your investment requirement could be waived. The entrepreneur work visa category for New Zealand is a points-based system, and the officer inside Immigration New Zealand assessing your application will check to see your experience either as an entrepreneur or as a senior manager in industry and allocate certain points depending on the number of years you have worked. There are also points for your age. There are also points for the amount of investment you can make. And then there are also points for starting a business outside Auckland because we don't want to congest that city too much. And then there are also points for the amount of employment that you can create and a few other parameters. So I've just given you some of the basic criteria for which points can be given. But once you do a proper, thorough assessment with a professional like myself from AJV Global, we can tell you exactly how many points you will get. At the moment, the points required is 120 points for you to be able to make an entrepreneur work visa application. And that is where me and my team can help you to do a proper assessment. So if you're an entrepreneur who has been keen to establish a business in an inviting, friendly, and a place where you can do business with complete ease like New Zealand, talk to us and we will get you started on this journey right away. AJV Global has been serving thousands of clients from around the world for many years, and we would be delighted to work with you and your family and bring you into New Zealand as an entrepreneur because it will not only benefit you, but it will benefit New Zealand as well.